Hey everyone, welcome to Nerding IO. I'm JD, and today we're actually going to continue our journey into authentication with Gen AI apps. Specifically, we're going to look at how we can use Vercel AI and how with Auth0 you can actually add interrupts so that you can authenticate in your workflow itself. And with that, let's go ahead and get started.
All right, so in this one, what we're going to be doing is we're actually going to be using auth0 and Vercel AI to actually build and pull our calendar information, but we're going to try it in two different ways. We are going to look through the first way that we did the other day and kind of just step through how you can do this in Next.js. One of the other cool things is they actually have a Fast.js implementation as well. So if you're looking for Python, you can actually use this stack instead. But what's cool about this blog is that it gives you kind of a step-by-step checklist of how you need to go through and create your application. So we've actually already done this in the previous video. So I'm not going to go through that this time, but it's a really good tool to kind of leverage. And so what you can see is that in this one, we're going to use all just Vercel. There's no lane graph. And we're the first way that this blog actually shows you is you're just going to connect. So when you log into the application, it's actually going to store your scopes, and then you're going to have your credentials, and you're able to just hit the API. However, what we want to do is we want to try and do an interrupt. And so what we're going to do is they also have this other how-tos, and it's check your Google Calendar availability. So it's a little bit different. We're still going to use JavaScript. You can see that they have all these different tech stacks. So the AI SDK is what we're going to use. Last time we did LangGraph. Again, I really like GenKit. Some of the prompt stuff that they're doing is super cool. I actually put together a boilerplate and definitely think you should check them out. And I love that this is gaining traction. But Vercel is still really popular, and so what we're going to do is we're actually going to go through this, build our own application, and we're going to try and do an interrupt and see what we get. So in here, the first thing that it's telling you to do is, so there's no repo for this. I just kind of started everything from scratch, and we'll kind of look at the code along with one.
Real quick, everyone, if you haven't already, please remember to like and subscribe. Also, I wanted to show you a GenKit boilerplate that I've been working on.
Real quick, this is another project that I'm working on. It's a Firebase and Next.js starter kit that comes with AI-powered apps. And so what this allows you to do is get up and running with Firebase, Next.js, and GenKit, as well as pre-built AI components. So some of the things that I focused on were the ability to actually start with AI first mindset and built-in prompt instructions so that you can actually build new features, build new blog posts, build documentation, and actually integrate directly into a chatbot that is built with a chat interface as well as content generation and different prompts. So if you sign up now, there's actually a discount going on where you can get 90% off, and this will fluctuate by... This also comes with a social proof, which allows you to do dynamic discounts. Right now we're offering 90% off. So definitely check it out, and don't forget to like and subscribe.
And with that, let's get back to it.
We're building this. So if we pull the code up, the first thing it's telling you to do is go down here and put in your auth. You need to put in your auth0. So go ahead and install that with the Next.js auth0 piece. But it's telling you to put in this auth0-AI in the root of your folder, right along with your middleware. You also need to put in a Google Auth folder. And again, this is where it's going to have this federated connection through an auth0 AI interrupt. And what that's going to do is it's going to basically check, are you authenticated? And if not, it'll actually give you a component to go fill out. or used to log in. And so we've done this. Now it's telling us to actually integrate a tool. So if we go back to our code base, you can actually see that we're using this check user. And mine's a little different. In order to get it to work, I actually had to do some transformation. But you should be able to drop in that tool, and this will give you the ability to call out to the AI calendar. And one thing to note is if you actually look at the information that it's trying to call out to, it's a little bit different. So just something to keep in mind when we look at our calendar information, right? So right here, it's calling out to a specific scope. So this is a scope that is outside of our auth that we signed up for when we were setting up our auth 0 implementation. And that's what's kind of making this unique, because this is a scope that's outside of the default ones that we can leverage in auth 0. So now that we have our tool, we have our calendar information and our syncs, we're going to go ahead and build our route. There's some key differences that we will look at from before. First, this thread ID is super important. Also, this execute with interrupts. So this with interrupts is actually going to allow us, again, to actually put in an element and allow us to authenticate. Next, we're going to add the component that we actually want to trigger that says go ahead and do your authentication. And then we basically just have a chat. Again, and the most important thing, though, is you need to have this interrupt so that when it sees a tool, it knows what tool, and then it's going to tell it to connect the widget. So you can kind of build your own chat, and I'll show you mine, but this is also super important. So now when we go and run this, we have our route. We're basically giving it some context of what today's date is, telling it, that I want to be able to, that you're a friendly calendar assistant, and to basically just tell me if I'm busy or not. Otherwise, error out. So let's go ahead and run this. So I'm just going to do, again, this is just a regular. So again, this is just a regular Next.js app. I went ahead and added an auth landing page so that I can still log in. So that, again, this is still using the same application that we built with the last one. You can see there's nothing here that says that it is looking for the busy scope, but this is going to give us access as it did the other one. And I just used this because it was an easy way to authenticate the experience. All right, so now I have my custom chat window. We can see that I'm pulling in my basic information. And what we're going to do is we're actually going to try and get an interrupt and see what it looks like. So I've noticed that it's still a little buggy for me and how I programmed it, but like what I noticed is I need to trigger an initial response so that I can get an ID. Cool. And so now that I have like this initial message, I'm going to go ahead and just paste in, am I free on Wednesday at 10:30, knowing that I'm busy, and see what we can get as a response. Cool. So now we're getting the interrupt here, right? It knows that we don't have access to that scope of calendar busy. And so we're going to go ahead and run a check. What this should do is actually do a pop-up and give us the ability to get that additional scope. So you can see this is a bit different than it was before. We're going to go ahead and allow. Again, very similar because we're going back through auth 0. And okay, so cool. So you can see that the piece disappeared. I'm noticing like sometimes I get a response and sometimes it's slow. So as you just saw, Okay, so it didn't convert the time correctly, but it did at least pick up the time and then converted it back. So, but this is super cool, right? We were able to pull back from our calendar, and we were able to see that information. So if you want to understand a little bit more, you can actually look at the logs that are coming back. So don't worry about the cross-policy pieces, but what I wanted to show is when it's building, and then this calling resume and this pop-up close. So if we go back and look at our code and we have information here, and we're looking at this pop-up, these federated functions for our interrupt, our auth, and our finish are what's happening in our pop-up. So once this is closed, it is looking for the information to come back and say on finish is a function, this calling on finish and sending on finish and calling on resume. And that calling on resume is actually sending us the ability to then pull information from our calendar. So we have that interrupt, it went back to the system, it then resumed its place in state, and the LLM continued to give its result, which is super, super cool. It means that we don't necessarily have to authenticate right from the get-go, and we can actually authenticate into our application.
All right, that's it for us today, everyone. What we went through is how you can actually wire up Vercel AI so that you can fire off interrupts to actually authenticate your agentic flows. And with that, happy nerding.